Hello and welcome to lesson 7 of how to make iPhone apps with no programming experience. In this lesson, I'm going to talk to you about stack views. I'm going to tell you about what they are and how they're used, and then finally how we are going to use them to create our card game user interface. So let's take a simple example like this form on this iPhone app. It's got 2 labels and 2 text fields and a button. So in order to lay this out with auto layout constraints, you're probably going to have to add a rule to dictate how far down the label is from the top of the screen, and then how far down the text field is from that label, and then from that text field, how far down is the next label, and so on and so forth like that, describing kind of the vertical positioning of those elements. And then next you're going to have another set of rules where you're describing the horizontal position for each of these elements. So how far to the right is each label position, and how far to the right is each text field position, and for the button as well. So each of those things is a rule. There's an easier way. So the stack view is a container view. It can contain other elements. So instead of putting all of these labels, text fields, and the button into our view directly, we're going to put them into the stack view so that the stack view contains all of these elements, and then we're going to place the stack view on the view. So why would we want to do that? Well, the stack view allows the elements inside of it to stack on top of each other, either vertically or horizontally. In this case, we're probably going to want all of the elements to stack vertically. And then with one configuration, you can change the amount of space in between each element as well. So rather than having a horizontal and vertical rule for each element, we're just going to position the stack view how we want it, and then we're going to let the stack view handle the positioning of the elements inside of itself. We simply have to tell the stack view to stack all of the elements inside of it vertically with a space in between them, which we can specify how small or large that space is. Like I mentioned as well, you can also specify that the elements are going to stack horizontally. So let's say if you have 3 buttons that are side by side, instead of specifying rules for each of those buttons to position them, you can just throw them all into a stack view, specify that the elements inside that stack view are stacked horizontally, and then indicate an amount of space in between each element. The beauty of stack views is that you can put a stack view inside of another stack view. So take this stack view, for example, that we have containing the 3 side-by-side buttons. Well, I can throw this entire stack view into the first stack view that I specified with the form, and I can put this stack view as the last element of the stack in our first stack view, and then our user interface is going to look something like this. Awesome, right? And you're not just limited to nesting 2 stack views. You can nest as many stack views together as you'd like in order to build your user interface. So once again, let me show you what the UI would look like without stack views. Look at how many auto layout constraints we would have to manually specify. And then now look at it using the 2 stack views. Alright, now let's quickly jump into Xcode, and I want to show you exactly how you would specify a stack view in Interface Builder. So here we are in an Xcode project that I created just for the purpose of this demo, and what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to drag 3 buttons from my object library onto our view. So let me filter our object list. I'm just going to add a button here. Instead of dragging 3 buttons, actually what I can do as a shortcut is highlight that button and then press Command D on my keyboard to just duplicate that button, and so I can do that. Like that. So now I have 3 buttons. If you don't want to do the Command D way, you can always just drag 3 buttons from the object library down here. So in order to put these 3 into a stack view, I can highlight the 3 either from here in my document outline, or I can hold down Command and click each of these to highlight all 3 of them. But it's important that we have all 3 of them highlighted because we want all 3 of them to be included into our stack view. And then we're going to go down here and click this button that says stack. Okay, and if you notice in the document outline, all 3 of these buttons now are inside of this stack view container view. Okay, and they're still stacked vertically. And that's because if you highlight the stack view and you go over to the attribute inspector on your right, you can see here that the axis is vertical. Now I can change it to horizontal like that. And now they're stacked side by side, but without any sort of gap, right? So I just need to bump this spacing up. So let's say 30. And now you can see that they're all, there's a space of 30 in between each button. So instead of specifying auto layout constraints for every single button, all I had to do was throw them inside a stack view, configure it, and then now all I have to do is position the stack view using auto layout constraints. So I save a lot of time, and it's a lot easier to troubleshoot and debug too if you have layout issues. So I'm just going to, the easiest thing is just horizontally and vertically center that stack view. So there we go. I just had to specify 2 auto layout constraints for my stack view as opposed to probably 6 of them if I didn't use the stack view in order to position each of these buttons. Now, how are we going to use the stack view to build our war card game? Let's take a look. So what I have here is the completed UI for the war card game. And I'm showing you this because usually when you build an app, before you start, you're already going to have an idea of what the user interface is going to look like, either as a design composite from your designer, or maybe it's just a sketch in your notebook that you created yourself. But when you're looking at that user interface, when you sit down in Xcode to build it, you have to figure out how you're going to arrange these elements. And when we're thinking in terms of stack views, you're thinking in terms of which elements are side by side and which elements are on top of each other. So let me take this war card game design and break it down for you to show you how it's comprised of multiple stack views. So if I'm looking at this user interface, the first thing I'll notice are these 2 prominent cards side by side. So in my head, I would already be thinking that these 2 cards belong in a horizontal stack view. So they're arranged horizontally. Next, I notice that here in the player label and this number here, these 2 are stacked on top of each other. So this is probably going to be a stack view itself. And likewise, here is another label and then another number label. These are stacked on top of each other. So these 2 elements are going to be in their own vertical stack view. And then look at how they're arranged side by side with a large gap in the middle. So I can actually put this stack view together with this stack view inside of a horizontal stack view like that. So what we end up having is this horizontal stack view, which contains the score labels. We have a button on top of that, and then on top of that, we have another horizontal stack view, which contains the 2 cards, and on top of that, we have an image. So you can see that all of these elements are arranged on top of each other, vertically stacked, so I can throw all of these things into another stack view. So on the left-hand side, you can see that's exactly what I have here. I have the background image, first of all, that spans from edge to edge, and that's not inside a stack view because that's not really stacked on top of anything. It's really behind everything. So I put the image as the lowest element, or the base element, you could say, and then I put the stack view in front of that. But this stack view contains all of the other elements, and it's a vertically aligned stack view. So what we have in here is the logo first, and then we have a stack view which contains the 2 cards. It's a horizontally aligned stack view. And then we have the button below that, and then we have another stack view which contains 2 stack views, 2 mini stack views. And each of these mini stack views are vertically aligned, containing 2 labels. But this stack view itself is horizontally aligned, so that's why this stack view is beside this stack view right here, and there's a space in between them. So hopefully this lesson gave you an idea of how you can construct your user interface using stack views. In the next lesson, we're actually going to build out this user interface, so hope to see you there. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you later. Bye.